The Simone Feiler Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Award-winning author and creative genius Ellen Reid is joining me on my podcast today, along with the fabulous Sarah Kennedy, who's narrated the magical ghost story Ellen's written, The Ghost Rider, which was awarded the Gold Book Award by Literary Titan late last year. Congratulations to you, Ellen, and welcome to my podcast, lady.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you.
Awesome.
And Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
My pleasure. Now, according to Goodreads, Ellen, you've penned over 15 books, so congratulations on that massive achievement. Tell us how your writing journey began.
Well, of course, I wrote all my life practically, as a child even, just short stories and poems, actually. But I wrote my first novel at 18, which wasn't very good, I'm sure. Not that I've read it again, but I'm sure it wouldn't be. But I did have an agent in London at one time and almost had a book contract, and the publishing house merged, had a merger and things. My book got dropped off the list at that time. And then I actually got involved in performing arts for many years. And we had a ballroom dancing studio. So life was busy. I didn't get as much writing done. And this is like my second writing career, really, where I've got back to things. And at first, I self-published a novella and then a novel, which was the first of a series. But at that point, a small US publisher picked it up, and I'd written 2 books in the series at that stage. And so they published that particular series, which is different to what the Ghost Rider is, which is a standalone. So then while I was writing the series, I wrote Die for Love, which was my first ghost story, which really was a bit scarier than the Ghost Rider, which only has more suspense and mystery and just a couple of scary scenes, I suppose, rather than, it's not full on scary as many ghost stories are. And then after Die for Love, I wrote The Ghost Rider.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do you draw your inspiration from writing ghost stories?
Well, I think I'd always liked, not too scary, but I did particularly like that gothic mystery, suspense that when I was growing up, there was quite a lot of books around at that time that I used to read that were this suspenseful type. I did read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, so I'd read a lot of him. And I think your inspiration starts with perhaps what you've read, and so you find out what you like. So I read a lot of Poe, a lot of Agatha Christie, which is because I've always loved the mystery. And yes, I think I just wanted to write something a bit more spooky, but not too much. And really the Ghost Rider isn't as, I suppose I've got those tropes in there of, you've got your haunted cottage. Yeah. The person in the attic who isn't insane, though. That's turning the trope on its head a bit. Yeah. But there's the ghost and the just overall suspense of the story. So
it is. It's an absolutely fabulous story. Compelling.
Yes, thank you.
Compelling. But you mentioned when you were growing up reading those stories, you were actually born in the best part of the world, tropical North Queensland, like you. Tell us a little bit more about life growing up for you, Ellen, up there.
Well, I also came from a pre-technology time, where mobile phones weren't even considered or dreamt.
Oh, the good old days, you mean?
Yeah, that's right. So it was quite a laid back type of childhood and life that into my teens, and I lived there most of my life. I was born in Townsville and lived there most of my life, except for a shorter stint in Melbourne, where we lived for a while after we were married, and then we moved here to Brisbane 8 years ago to be with some of the family. The grandchildren are here, so that's a big draw. Our son and his family are here, but we did leave some family behind, but we catch up with everyone. But yes, it was very laid back, I suppose, as a child. Yeah. And I used to do a lot of reading because I never had brothers or sisters.
Right.
So I think, as an only child, you either, I don't know, find outlet somewhere else. You might have friends, but there's a lot of time you might be at home, and reading was always the thing for me as a child.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that you're learning there by reading different books, I guess.
Well, it is, yeah.
Very different from mindlessly just scrolling through TikTok, which they do nowadays. Now, you're not only an award-winning author, you've also turned your hand to photography and painting. So how did this come about?
Well, I was always interested in both, really, and I did a little bit of watercolors as a child, and I suppose a lot of children do, but I do particularly love it. And but I wasn't very good at drawing, so I sort of, oh no, well, I'm no good at that sort of thing,
Right.
And I never pursued it. But photography, I suppose I gained an interest in that. My husband was interested in bird photography to start with. And then I found I was interested in more, if we went into the rainforest, which we love to walk in, I was interested in photographing the fungi and the small things. But I mean, I love the birds, but they are hard to photograph too because they're always high up, and the fungi was easy, and the different ferns, and that was pre-digital that started, so I never really, it was really when I got my first digital camera that I really got into it more. And I love flowers, and so I did a lot of flower photography, and I like landscapes and old buildings too.
So I see on your website there's quite a few paintings that you've painted. Do you paint them from the photos you've taken?
The
flowers, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. I'm not any good if someone said, just paint me a chrysanthemum, and I don't have anything to
reference by.
Yes, I'm sort of just, where do I start? But yes, if I've got a photo, so best to use my own photos then. I'm not using someone else's. Best to use my own. And
you've got a good eye for it. My brother does fine art, and just comparing your photos with your paintings, it's like you know where those shadows fall. So you're obviously incredibly creative.
Well, I think that most of my life is being creative things, because even the performing arts where I was involved with is very creative, obviously.
Yeah. What sort of things did you do in that industry?
Well, I started with singing with a choir, and then I joined a music theatre company in Townsville, and professional, not for profit, I meant to say, not professional. But, there was an incredible lot of talent there. I didn't do very much on stage because I couldn't really act for the life of me, really. But I was okay singing in a chorus in a musical, that sort of thing. So, yes, I got into that. I ended up more backstage and production side of things than on stage.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes. Oh, yes. I sort of did just about every aspect, from props to, the only thing I don't think I worked on was sound and lighting. But I did, if you in not-for-profit, the community, you tend to do everything to help out, and it was all great fun. I loved it.
And back in that day, it would have been a really good outlet, I guess, for you to shine with your creativity. But the Ghost Rider,
yes,
so it picked up the Gold Book Award by Literary Titan late last year, deservedly so. Now that I know the story, it's such a compelling read, like I said earlier. Well, listen for me. Given the fact that Sarah did such a great narration on it.
Oh, definitely, yes. Sarah has done an incredible job.
Awesome.
Yes. I had discovered Sarah like a year or so before.
Right.
On Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
I was going to ask that, how you guys
I had it in my mind that, I would like to get an audiobook done. I wasn't certain which one, whether to go for Die for Love, or then when I did The Ghost Rider, I thought, no, I'll get that done first, because I loved it, which you have to do, otherwise you can't write it as well. But so I'd found Sarah on Instagram and followed her, and I thought, Sarah, I thought you'd be just perfect, and you were. You've done such a wonderful job. Yes.
Thank
you've done
you.
along the way, I was very happy.
Oh, good. I'm so pleased to hear that, Ellen. It was such a fun read. And all the characters and your descriptive passages of the amazing house and the damselfly meadow and the hut. When I narrate, I have a film strip running in my head all the time. And I was saying very recently that good writing, when a story is written really well, I can see so much detail in that film strip that's running in my head. And The Ghost Rider was absolutely no exception to that. I can still see everything so clearly. If I got on a plane, I could probably find it somewhere. The whole set,
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
What's your process narrating the book, Sarah? Do you, there's in particular with Ghost Rider, there's quite a few different character voices you needed to implement. Do you come up with a plan, or do you think, I'm going to do this voice, write the plan, which voice for which, or you just start reading it and it comes organically?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, Simone, and for every book, things are different. I'm a fairly organic sort of. My process is never the same, right? It depends on the book, it depends on the genre, and it depends on how dialogue heavy the book is. So, for instance, this one, I decided I was just going to read it once for pleasure, the whole way through, without taking any notes, without thinking, without having my narrator's hat on, just to read it, to get a really good feel for the story and the characters, and see if anything was kind of dropping into my imagination without kind of having to force it, or suddenly stopping and breaking that flow, and quickly Googling, where am I, what or Googling, to get an idea of what someone might look like, or getting on YouTube and trying to have a listen to an accent, or that can really kind of break up the flow of the story. So, for me, I just wanted to read it the whole way through for pleasure. And so I did that. And then once I did that, I went back and I worked through, I got a list of all the characters that were going to be speaking throughout the story. And that was when I started to break it down in terms of, I really often I need to know what they look like. Whether they're big or tall or thin or heavy set, or petite, and the color of their hair and the structure of their face, and because all of those things, the physicality of someone absolutely informs the way they move, and the way a person moves also informs their rhythmical language, the way that they speak, the speed with which they speak, whether they have really elongated vowels or very clipped words, and whereabouts their voice sits, on a musical staff, for instance, and whether their tone, whether their tone is very breathy or bassy or high pitched, and if they're very sing-songy. There's so many things that I question, and I spend a little bit of time just Googling stuff, trying to sometimes get some rough ideas about what people look like to start with. And then also I spend a lot of time on YouTube, and I go down a lot of rabbit holes, especially when there are accents involved. And I try not to get too caught up in the technicalities of being perfect. I'm not an accent expert by any means, but I do like to at least try to maintain consistency with whatever I've decided for the character. So then I just spend quite a long time in the booth, just recording stuff. And if I like it, I save it, and if I don't like it, I delete it. And then eventually I kind of whittle it down. And usually what I end up with is 1 or 2 sentences from the book, actual dialogue that the characters are speaking, that I've saved in a folder for their name, so that whenever that person is speaking in the story, I can quickly have a quick listen, sing along. Basically, I do a little sing along to get myself into the rhythm and the right, tone and all of that sort of thing. And then I go in and I record the dialogue. And so for dialogue heavy scenes, it can be a little stop-starty, because I need to make sure that I'm using the right voice for each character. Which is why it's really important to have done all that preparation before you go in and start recording the book, because otherwise it can become so disjointed that you really lose a sense of the story, and ultimately that's the main goal, is to make sure that the story has a lovely flow to it. Sorry, did I?
No, that was awesome. That was a very good insight.
Okay.
And that's amazing, Sarah, that you've done all that, because I mean, it came out then in the audio that we mightn't have known every detail of what you do, but then we did know because of the way you well, I was going to say acted the audiobook, really, because I think there's such a talent. I have such a high regard for people who can do audiobooks. It must, well, you can see with all you've done for it, how difficult it must be. But I can see how all that research you've done has put you in the right place then for each character.
It's definitely, you're very, very talented at what you do. I've worked with Sarah on a few different projects, and I'm always like, I just know that her work is going to be perfect. Beautiful and right on point. Sarah, when you were voicing the book, like, which was your favorite character in the book? Did you have a favorite character, and why?
I quite liked Lyle for a while, and then I changed my mind.
Yes. Yeah. So well written as well. They were all such fun, the original, the first Sir Giles, he was heaps of fun. I'm not going to say that I had an absolute favorite, because they were all so different too. Some were very threatening and foreboding, and some were very normal and just natural, and that was fun. It's always fun because your brain isn't kind of having to stay 5 steps ahead in terms of accent or a rhythm that is particularly different to my own. I can't say that there was a particular favorite. It was just good. It was such a romp for me.
That's
so
good.
Cool. What about you, Ellen? Like, when you were writing about the characters, did anyone sort of stand out first and foremost?
I think I liked Charles the best, mainly just because of the way his character developed. And but again, like Sarah, I mean, everyone I write, I do like, even the ones that I sort of love to hate a little bit sometimes. I always do like like the characters, but there's some that I wouldn't personally like to spend time with, like the twins.
Yeah, the twins. Me neither.
So there's some a little bit quirky, and I do like to put quirky characters in my stories. But yes, I mean, as I'm writing them, you can favour some a little bit, but I have to be in the head of all of them while I'm actually writing them. So,
How long did it take you to write it?
well, the first draft took, I think I did that one in 2 months.
Wow.
And then I did the second draft, took me a month after that. Because I like to do the first 2 drafts. And then I set it down, set it aside, clear my head. Otherwise, it'll all be going round and round when you're trying to look at editing your own work before I send it to an editor.
Right.
So yes, I mean, all up, by the time you go through all the different stages, is probably overall about a year. But I do the actual first draft in about 2 months.
Wow.
But I mean, I've done the research before that too.
Yeah.
So that's included in the year that
Right.
it takes with the whole book. Yeah.
I think that's a pretty quick turnaround, given it's quite a good sized novel, and the development of the characters and everything. That would take me a lot longer than a year. So well done, you. And how did it come about then that you won the Gold Book Award by Literary Titan?
They, like any award, that you have to, your manuscript is submitted and they go through the process, and that Literary Titan award, a Gold Book Award and a Silver Book Award. So I was lucky enough to get the gold for that book. So I was very happy with that. And I also got another award for that. I had a silver award in the Coffee Pot Book Club. It's a UK award that they do annually. And so I got in the section, like with the Gold Book Award, it was overall, but with the Coffee Pot Book Club, it was the section. I got that in. I should remember, shouldn't I? It was paranormal. I think it was just romance and paranormal section. Yeah.
Well, deservedly so, because it's great. What was your thoughts after when you heard it? Did it sort of ring differently from writing it and reading it yourself to when Sarah narrated it?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel listening to it?
Yes. At first it felt very strange. Not that, I mean, Sarah had done a wonderful job, and I do listen to audiobooks as well as reading. I do like to listen to audiobooks. But hearing your own book, and suddenly the characters are actually speaking back at me. It's very weird at first. So yes, it is. But I sort of got into the rhythm of it, and it went fine from there. And I think when I would hear a new character come in, that Sarah had finally got to one of the other characters who hadn't been in it, straight away I'd think, oh wow, I nearly said, oh wow, at every time I heard a new voice, because it really was. I just felt it fitted. I never had that clash or grating that, oh no, that's not it. I really felt that Sarah had encapsulated the characters so well. Incredible. Yeah.
Oh, that's such good feedback.
All praise to you, Sarah, because
thank you so much.
It really was fantastic.
I'll save this. I'm going to make sure that I save this this podcast episode for when I'm having a moment of self-doubt.
Yes. Well, that's right.
So lovely to hear that. Thank you.
Yes, no, well deserved. That's for sure.
Would you recommend to other authors, Ellen, or why would you recommend if they were thinking about doing an audiobook? Why would you say you should do it, or why you shouldn't do it? Hopefully you don't say why you shouldn't do it.
Definitely not. I think that the audiobook is a very strong other aspect of reading these days. Now in book awards, as we were speaking of, and different societies and such will accept audiobooks into competitions even. But I think that a lot of people, I know a lot of my friends, particularly online, will have, like I do, 3 books on the go, always have a paperback, always have an ebook, and always have an audiobook. And I certainly would recommend it because, well, it is wonderful to hear your story come to life. You don't have to say to someone, well, have you listened to an audiobook? Well, imagine if that's your book, you would want that, just to bring it to life in a different way. It's a totally different way. And yes, and it's reading, but not because it's listening, I know, but it's just, yes, I just love audiobooks, so that's why I thought I have to get Ghostwriter done as one, and hopefully the next one.
Yeah, that's
When
was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
You've penned over 15 books, so obviously if you really like the work done on this one, you'd be keen to do another one.
Yes. Well, it's my next, I finished I finished my first 2 drafts of it. The next one, which is set totally in Australia this time.
Right.
Because of a lot of the, like Die for Love, I also wrote set in England, because to get that suspense and mystery, castles and spooky old houses are good. But so this one is set not so much in a spooky house, but there are, and the other thing with it is that it's more a story of a ghost rather than a ghostly story. So it's not so much spooky, but the ghost is actually the character.
Right.
A character in the story. So and it's got the 2 timelines, the same as the Ghostwriter had. And so in the contemporary part of the story, they're aware that ghosts are in the house, but the ghosts aren't, there's no scenes where suddenly the ghosts are sort of scaring them as such. So a little bit different, but still similar type of suspense.
Very
and love story, yeah. So that's set in Charters Towers, which is west of Townsville. I don't know if you're aware, much about it, but it's I've been to Charters Towers many times or over the years.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great place to set it, because it's also, its heritage is gold mining, and I wanted to bring the gold mining aspect into it.
Looking forward to hearing that one.
Yes. Well, I'll,
did you spend, going back to the Ghostwriter, did you spend time in England, obviously, in places like, where the Ghostwriter's set?
Yes, well, I did, not immediately before, but a little bit before, a while back. Yes, and we went a lot over that West Country, that. For me, it's set in Castle Combe is the village that inspired my thoughts for my village in the story. But my husband's English, and he was actually born in Somerset. So we went back and did quite a bit around that Somerset, Wiltshire,
beautiful area,
Devon areas, that they're all so beautiful. Yes. Yeah, but I think that without going to the place, well, you might be able to do it through research, but you don't get the feel of it. Yeah.
I think
And
that's why you did such a beautiful job bringing it to life, because obviously you've been there and you know what it felt like being there.
Well, that's right. And I think well, for me anyway, I like to go to a place and because, just the weather, like with Charters Towers, but the next one, totally different feel to the climate and such. And I like to really have that. I mean, I do research on top of that, but I like to go there. Yeah.
So the process after you've written it, you said you then go through it again and then edit it, and then you send it off to a publisher or sorry, an editor. Do you use the same editor, or have you used?
I have been using the same editor for the three, for the two so far, The Die for Love and The Ghost Rider, yes. My Thornton series is with the publisher, so that's their editor does that, but I had independently published the Ghost Rider, so I used an editor that I had been using.
Right. And how do you find the difference between self-publishing and being traditionally published with those first few?
Yeah. There is a big difference in a way. I mean, but you've got to be sort of up for doing a lot more yourself. So you might have the control, but you have a lot more work to do. And of course, all the marketing and publicity that goes with it, which you do even with the publisher, because they still like you to do some social media and such. So I guess that over the years, you just get more practice to doing it. But there's always something new out there on social media or some other way you can do things. But I think, yes, it's difficult because you do have that marketing side, which is the biggest.
That's what a lot of authors I work with say, that's the hardest part. It's marketing your book. You can write it, you can self-publish it, you can do whatever, but you've got to tell people that it's there.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, mainly through social media, but I do some paid advertising at times. But I mean, obviously, you try and keep that down a bit because it can be quite expensive. But mainly through social media. I think the trick is that you have to do it not just once a week. You have to, well, I don't post every day, but nearly every day. And like my biggest following is on Instagram, because there's actually a good book community on Instagram. And you really need to get to know people, and it's hard to, I've always found it hard to talk about myself, but people like to know things about you too. And so I have had one Facebook launch. I did a launch on Facebook with my series. So try different things all the time. Yeah.
Well, good for you. So what is your handle on Instagram so people can find you?
Alan Reed Author.
Okay, excellent. And you're on Facebook?
Yes, I'm on Facebook. That is probably the next one I do the most, and Twitter.
Yeah.
After that, Goodreads, which is, where people can leave reviews, but it's also a place readers and writers can, you can do a review and discuss the book, and they sometimes contact you.
That's sensational. That's like a little networking area.
Yeah. And then like there's BookBub, which is another good place for book reviews. So yes, it's just, and within Facebook, of course, you can join a lot of groups within Facebook.
Yeah.
So I am a member of the Romance Writers of Australia and the Historical Novel Society of Australasia, that is. So being part of the groups is good. You can, they have Facebook groups, and they have conferences. Not that I've been to the Romance Writers one yet, but I did go to the Historical Novel Society conference one year in Melbourne that they had it. So it's good. Those conferences are good where you can talk to other writers, and they usually have publishers and agents there that you can have a chat to as well. So it is quite, as you start thinking more, it's quite involved, and you need to sort of.
It's probably quite overwhelming, the number of different platforms that you probably feel like you should be involved in, and then you kind of run the risk of spreading yourself thin, or becoming completely overwhelmed and doing absolutely nothing because you don't know where to start.
That's right.
I'm hearing so much of what you're saying, Ellen, and I'm relating to so much of it from my own perspective, which is I'm not a writer. I do other things, but I'm completely. It's so nice to hear you.
I feel the same.
Quite therapeutic for me to be hearing you talking like this, because I'm like, yes, I know the feeling.
Yeah, that's so true. It's very hard to, be on every single platform all of the time when you're just doing it yourself. Certainly, I totally agree.
I think that the risk of overloading ourselves is the biggest thing, and sometimes I do feel that I've got to have a spell. It's couple of days I'm not posting, and you just need to sort of have that breather, and that doesn't hurt to have either, I don't think. But I mean, I've read some books on marketing, and where they say just choose 2 or 3 platforms and just concentrate on those. But even like you might say, well, okay, Facebook's one of the platforms, but then you get involved in different groups within Facebook. So sometimes it's just you just think, oh, I can't do it anymore.
Turn it off and go for a walk in nature.
Well, that's right. That's usually what I do. Just you have a breather and go out into the garden.
Yeah, that's right. But you've got your own website. What's your website? Where can people find that?
Again, it's under my name, ellenreid.com. Yes. The trick is that the read is READ, not REI. Yeah. Okay. Which I've been told many people pick that up and say, oh, READ, like read with book. Read book.
You were born to do this, Ellen. With a name like that.
Yeah. Well, that's because that's my married name, so I must have known something. I had a fairly good single name too, which was Bond.
Oh, nice.
Because at school I used to get ribbed a lot with, Bond movies.
James. It's been wonderful chatting with you, getting inside the mind of a creative. And The Ghostwriter's out now in print, and I think it's going to be up very soon on Audible and everywhere else. So highly recommend the read and the listen, because Sarah's done such a great job. Great writer you are, Ellen, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Simone, and you too, Sarah. It's been lovely to, I know your voice very well. But it's been lovely actually chatting.
You too, Ellen.
And thank you both so much. It's been like putting this audio book out has been just a pleasure, because both of you have been so wonderful. So thank you both very much.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. I appreciate it very much, working with people like yourself, Ellen, who write amazing stories, and wonderful people like Sarah who just nail those narrations. So thank you, ladies, for being with me today.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler podcast. What's your story? Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.